always say when you're listening to the show, besides tweeting, hashtag media show, certainly make notes because it's so important. You learn. I like to think you learn so much. Keeping in mind, I describe the show as your 2-hour on-air brand communication, right? Or brand consultation, free, mahala, I think. Douglas Kruger is with me. He's it says motivational speaker. I think that's off the mark, quite honestly. How do you describe yourself?
These days I go for the tagline, business speaker and author.
Well, yeah. All right. An author of many books, including Own Your Industry, which I've told you this before and I'll say it again to listeners, you absolutely must read. But there's this new book called How to Make Your Point Without PowerPoint. Okay, so these are for people delivering speeches, right?
Yes, and the humble goal here is really for me to win the Nobel Peace Prize for ending suffering to humanity. So a humble goal with this one. But yeah, anyone who's ever sat in a lengthy, boring death by PowerPoint presentation will know exactly what goes wrong. Messages die as a result of PowerPoint. Now, it's not the medium itself that is actually the problem. If used well, it can help you with your presentations. But 9 times out of 10, as we know, it's not used well.
Okay, so let's get this right. I mean, I know many people, even at community level, when they talk about a presentation or at a higher level, okay, have you got your PowerPoint presentation?
Absolutely.
Right? Are you saying PowerPoint is nonsense?
Well, no, I'm saying exactly what you've just said there. The fact that it's become default is a problem. And in fact, it happens in a couple of ways. Exactly as you've just said. You arrive at a venue, you have an important presentation to do. Your job is to connect and engage with this audience, persuade hearts and minds. And the first question, do you have slides? Can we load your slides onto our machine? Now, the fact that is a default question shows that there's a problem with presenting. There are exactly 0 speeches from human history that are well-known or famous or world-famous as a result of the slides that accompany them. It just doesn't work that way.
That is so true, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just mention maybe 5 of them.
Well, exactly, yeah. Can you remember a single PowerPoint presentation you've ever seen?
The Gettysburg Address, I read that, yeah, but maybe 3, 4 others?
Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, I mean, anything if you take from sort of ancient history.
Mandela's wasn't by PowerPoint.
There you go. Yeah, I have a dream. Yeah. Yes, we can, etc., etc. None of them use PowerPoint slides. And again, the default being the problem. What happens is we know from a sort of a production of a speech side that we have a presentation coming up and we've got to connect and persuade and engage. And the first thing we do is go, all right, boot up PowerPoint. What do I do for slide number 1? Now, I think that's already the wrong start. Mm-hmm. Our starting point should be, what is the message? How do I make it come alive? Because having the facts, having the information is half of our job. Making it come alive is the balance. That's the important part. And starting with PowerPoint as a de facto medium is already the wrong starting point.
So why do so many people think that PowerPoint is the answer?
I think it's become something of a crutch. It's also become so, as I said, just sort of par for the course in the corporate world that we assume it's the right way to do it. Everybody does it, so I should too. And there the lemmings go off the edge of the cliff.
Okay, so let's look at 2 things here. One is, and it's all in the book, I know that, so then to get it. One is to use PowerPoint or not. When do you decide that if you have to, when you decide yes or no?
Okay, so my starting point is to ask yourself, what are you trying to persuade this audience to do? Or how are you trying to change their thinking? What's the end state goal? And then after having decided on that, you ask yourself whether or not slides would help you. You don't simply start with slides as a de facto. And
then use slides as the central part of your presentation.
Yes, absolutely. Most people start, the first thought is, how do I design my first slide, as opposed to what am I trying to achieve? And the things that we're trying to achieve are fairly basic. We're either trying to sell something, or we're trying to lead a group of people in a certain direction, or we're trying to inspire or change behavior. That really is the heart and soul of just about any presentation you'll ever do in your life. Mm-hmm. And generally speaking, there are much better and more persuasive ways of getting inside the human mind, making people uncomfortable with their current reality, and inspiring change. I mean, just by way of an example, Ashraf, your own show here, we generally can't see you unless we actually go online and look at you visually. You have theater of the mind going on. So as you know, it's about the voice, it's about the energy, and it's about telling stories that change people's thinking. Realistically, we do the same thing, but we become lazy and we start thinking it's about the slides.
Interesting. Okay, so when you do use the slides,
what are some of the disadvantages to using slides? Let's go in that direction.
Yeah, okay.
So the first one, by not using slides, you stand out from the crowd. If everybody else does it and you don't, you stand out on purpose. And I mean, you refer to the book Own Your Industry. The whole heart and soul of that is don't fit in, stand out, be unique. The second thing is it changes your voice. If you've ever received that call on a sort of a Wednesday night when you're trying to have your dinner and somebody reads a telemarketing script at you, you can tell that they are reading a script. It changes the tone of the voice. Now, the same exact thing happens with public speaking. When you are presenting according to slides, you necessarily have a staccato stop-start rhythm. It's flick, change, speak, flick, change, speak. And musically speaking, it's kind of like someone playing chopsticks versus the free form and the beauty of agile language, which is more the Mozart or the Beethoven of what we do. And in fact, actually, there have been some interesting studies on this one. Certain divisions at NASA have tried to ban PowerPoint. And they say that it's not that PowerPoint presentations are incorrect or that the information is wrong, but they say that filtering it through the medium of one slide after another changes the nature of the information. They say it's not as agile as language.
Well, that's a good point. Now, when is it okay to use PowerPoint, and when would you use it?
Okay, so my little sort of rule of thumb, there is a hierarchy for this one, which is when you're going to use slides, they should be visual in nature. Because that's what it is. It is a visual aid. And I heard a speaker once say, taking a photograph of a set of words is not a visual aid. Taking all of your... And also, of course, you've seen the presentations with, according to this chart, which you can't quite see, but now I'll explain it to you. Or the next chart or graph comes up, and it is so complex that it's just visually overwhelming. So the times in which it's appropriate to use slides, when a visual makes your message come alive. In my own 60-minute keynote presentations, I do occasionally use them. I use not PowerPoint, but Keynote for Mac. But count the words. You'll get 4 or 5 out of the entire presentation. The rest are emotive visuals. And here's the formula I use for that one. I say, if you're going to use slides, your slide should be the itch, not the scratch. So in other words, it should set you up and you deliver the information.
Okay, that's very important. Now your thoughts are that, the vast majority do not do that. By the way, if you wish to comment, that's absolutely fine. 0891104207. We're talking about how to make your point without PowerPoint. It's also the title of a book by Douglas Kruger. So get the book. It's again, it's a must read because I think it's a massive enabler. And I know many people listening to this show and just about everything else I do are in positions of influence where you talk to groups, small and large, all the time. So do read that. Yeah. So. You do say that, however, PowerPoint has become the norm. It's become the crutch. It's the industry standard. It's what's expected of you. How did we ever get to that position then? Because what you're almost telling me now is like drop the language. You're almost telling me, you see, this language and this is how we did it. Don't do that any longer.
Yeah, I'm saying, you see the herd of sheep heading in that direction? Do something different by design. And it really is, it's just because it's a crutch. But actually, if you think about the amount of damage that it can and often does do to your presenting, just consider, for example, how badly we hemorrhage time into creating slides. You can spend 2-3 days creating a deck of PowerPoint slides, and you have not applied all of that energy to the psychology of persuasion. You haven't been thinking about stories. You haven't been thinking about what that audience wants and needs and how to move hearts and souls. You have literally been sitting doing a design job. So that's hemorrhaging time part 1. Then we get into the room and things go wrong technically. So you arrive with your PowerPoint presentation. You've got your 25 slides all lined up and they all look incredibly pretty. And then the presenter before you covers all the same points. Now you're stuck because you have these set slides and you have to move through them. The best you can do, and it looks terribly amateurish, is to say, okay, I'll skip that one, I'll skip the next one, I'll skip the following.
And then that delays the presentation.
And not only that, it makes it look canned.
Well, absolutely.
Yes, it takes it from being a real live engagement with a group of people, like a conversation, and it turns it into what is obviously and visually denoted as a canned presentation. So you lose that immediacy, you lose the drama and the connection. You also can't be agile. So, for example, if you want to throw something else in, something that you've seen or heard in the room, that you would like to then customize your talk to that group, you can't do it because you're set to that staccato rhythm. And it's amazing how often the best moments in a presentation are the things you couldn't have prepared. It's something you heard around the coffee machine in the morning, the delegates talking among themselves, something that happened in the room.
And you want to pick up on
and
that.
You want to play with it. And that sort of thing can be solid gold for a presenter who's awake and has the agility to change
We'll
the
get
message.
more from Douglas Kruger. Let's get some quick calls on this issue. Mike from Newlands, go ahead. Hi, Mike.
Hi, good morning, Ashraf, and good morning, Douglas.
Thank you.
We shared a stage together some years ago through Toastmasters, and fond memories of that.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes. I just wanted to say I found out what you this morning. It's quite exciting because I found out by default. My company, when I sold it on, had to do a presentation, everybody did PowerPoint, and I had no idea what PowerPoint was. Technology had moved on, and so I always concentrated on my speech. And out of all the 6 presentations, I was found at the end of the day, all the other people commented on the fact that one presentation they remembered was mine, because I had one simple little prop, and that was an old 8-track tape, which was all I could really remember. And it was very exciting to know that really it's all about the word, and that PowerPoint really is it's really something to be treated with great respect, and really can bedevil any good speech.
Well, there you go. So you made your point without PowerPoint. I think just well said. I mean, absolutely. Yeah. Now, Douglas, what about we attend meetings where there are budget presentations?
Yes.
What's the difference then?
Okay. In a scenario like that where you're presenting technical information, once again, your job is not simply to have the information, it is to interpret it for your audience. It's to take the dots and dashes of data and say, what does this mean for us? And we have, over the course of South Africa's history, had some very good budget speeches where exactly that is done. It's not just about a chart or a graph or a visual on a screen. It's, let's translate this into human language for the people who are listening. What does it mean for you? And my goal with this book is not simply to remove a tool out of people's arsenal. It's to replace that with better tools. I mean, as the previous caller just suggested with Toastmasters background, that's a bit of training in terms of how to speak. And I think that's the thing that's lacking. We assume that PowerPoint will take the place of training, and it simply doesn't. So what I've attempted to do then is to replace the use of charts and graphs and slides, dots and dashes, with really public speaking tools, which is the use of stories, metaphors, persuasive techniques that really get into an audience's mind and actually get them thinking.
Okay, but I just want to stay with it. Does that work for a budget speech at a school governing body meeting? Does it work for a budget speech in a company of 10, or in fact an AGM where 200 people are represented and there's a whole lot of notes around that we have to decide on?
My argument would be yes, and I'll give you an example of that one. I was once asked to do a little bit of coaching for a gentleman who was a chief financial officer for his company, and his staff, after their previous year's roadshow, had said to him, God bless you, we love you, but get some training in public speaking before the next one. And I sat down with him and we looked at his deck of slides, which was his starting point. And it was this incredibly complex series of little squiggly lines and things that laymen generally don't understand. And I said, look, pretend I'm incredibly simple. Tell me what this means. And of his own volition, he came up with a simple metaphor story about how our economy was essentially walking through a dark forest. And these were the traps, and these were the things that had gone wrong, but here was the hope on the other side. And he says, that's what the numbers mean. So what we essentially did there is we took all of the numbers, which he wants to deliver to his audience, and we turned them into a handout after the fact. And I think actually that's where it goes wrong quite often. The information that we put up on slides should be a handout. It's not the presentation
and
itself.
And a handout before the facts means people don't need you any longer. They will just read.
Exactly that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Your job really is not just to disseminate the information, the dots and dashes, the numbers. It's to tell us what it means and what to do about that. You're a thought leader, not merely a reporter. The reporting can be done with handouts.
Good point. Now, let's just wrap up then. In fact, there's a quick call I can take. Robert, just one line if you can. Go ahead, Robert. Hi.
Hi there, Ashram. I agree totally with Douglas. I do a lot of motivational speaking. I do a lot of professional talks, and I listen to a lot of people. The PowerPoint should be used for the speaker and not for the audience. You just need to jog him on what to say. And a lot of people, unfortunately, crowd they talk on the PowerPoint. The audience misses the whole thing, and nothing is learned. I rarely ever use it, and I'm a prolific speaker.
Okay,
and I never use it any longer.
There you are. In fact, I can say ditto, because as I've told Douglas off the air, yes, I MC a lot, which probably doesn't require PowerPoint, but once in a while I tend to give talks on issues that concern me, and PowerPoint is actually, have I used a PowerPoint? No, I haven't. Okay. So what should we be doing then? You've got a minute.
Right. Get inspired by top speakers like, say, a Clem Sunter, who has been speaking all around the world and changing the thought processes of governmental leaders without PowerPoint. It can be done, and it can be done at that level. The next thing is to study just a little bit about how to connect and engage with an audience. And one simple formula, public speaking in its best form, is just this: make a point, tell a story. Make another point, tell another story. And the more you can take your information and make it come alive for that group, the more effectively you will move them to action. So having the information is half of our goal. Making it come alive is the balance. And there are better ways to do that than chucking dots and dashes onto a slide.
Absolutely. Okay, you've got some work to do. Of course, the book is called How to Make Your Point Without PowerPoint, and I suppose you can get it just about everywhere. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay, so check it out, Google it, find out. All the stores, I think, had them. That's number one. Number two, I'm going to suggest that you actually maybe tweet 5 key takeouts of this discussion, and I'll gladly retweet it. And Douglas, of course, is part of that Champion South Africa movement that I often talk about. Well, what do we want to do? Build South Africans into champions and build this country into champion South Africa. So with that in mind, you're making your point without PowerPoint, I think, is absolutely critical. Douglas, good chatting to you once again. I'm sure we'll do it again.
Thanks, Asha.
As well. All right, so there you are. Fascinating. Give me your thoughts on that. Have you made a point ever without PowerPoint? Or in fact, do you think that PowerPoint is the only way to go? You can't do it on the air. You can certainly tweet me using #MediaShow.